Here we can see Gandhi as a young student in London. So this is young Gandhi photo. See that when he was in London. Here Gandhi he resigned from the committee. This shyness I retained throughout my stay in England. Of course, shyness. This shyness. It means cannot speak in front of others. This shyness is continued or retained throughout my stay in England. Even when I paid a social call, the presence of half a dozen or more people would strike me dumb. Of course, the same shyness continued among others in front of others. Most of the people, approximately 50% of the people, those who talk to me and those who point out me, they consider me as I am dumb. I am a dumb person because of my shyness. I once went to Ventnor with Sajid Majmuda. Once we went to Ventnor with Sajid Majmuda. We stayed there with a vegetarian family. After resigned for that vegetarian committee, we went to Ventnor, and there we stayed there with a vegetarian family. Mr. Howard. Who is Mr. Howard? The author of the Ethics of Diet. Was also staying at the same watering place. Watering place means what here? A seaside resort or a town with hot water springs. We met him and he invited us to speak at a meeting for the promotion of vegetarianism. Of course, actually I'm from vegetarian society, and I went to another place, that is a Ventnor. There also I met Mr. Howard. He's a good vegetarian. At the time he met us and we met him. We felt very happy and he invited us, and there he requested me, what is that? To speak at a meeting for the promotion of vegetarianism. So what I have to do? I got another chance. What I feel so sad, the same situation came up to me once again, that is to speak in front of others about vegetarianism. I had ascertained that it was not considered incorrect to read one's speech. I knew that many did it so to express themselves coherently. Coherently means here clearly and briefly. There also I could not speak in front of them to speak extempore. That is extempore. Extempore means without prior preparation. Would have been out of the question for me. I had therefore written down my speech. I stood up to read it, but could not. There also I tried, yes, what I have to do. So the same process I followed. That is, if I write my feelings, my points on one paper, if I speak in front of others, it's maybe I can get some good name. He thought like that, but what happened? What happened is nothing. The same thing has repeated. I had therefore written down my speech. I stood up to read it, but could not. I could not speak anything among them. My vision became blurred. What's my vision? I have to speak something good among others. But what happened? It became blurred. My vision became blurred. And I trembled. It means I was shivered. I was nervousness. I stood up to read it, but could not. I trembled, though the speech hardly covered a sheet of fool's gap. What's the meaning of fool's gap? A size of paper. I wrote everything on the paper, but even I wrote on the paper, I could not open my mouth in front of others. Sajid Majmuda had to read it for me. And my friend is there, Majmuda. He read it for me. He helped me. Actually, I wrote some points on paper, but my friend read in front of others from in my place. His own speech was, of course, excellent and was received with applause. Applause means what here? Appreciation shown by an audience, usually expressed through clapping. Actually, when my friend Mazmuda, when he give any speech, it is really fantastic and awesome, and everybody appreciated with their hands through their claps. But what happened? I was ashamed of myself and sad at heart for my incapacity. He said that he says I was ashamed of myself, like inferiority complex, like that. I was ashamed of myself and sad at heart for my incapacity. My last effort to make a public speech in England was on the eve of my departure. My last effort. What is my last effort? I tried, at least this time. I decided to try to make a public speech in England was on the eve of my departure for home, but this time too I only succeeded in making myself ridiculous. What does ridiculous means here? Foolish. An object to be made fun of. Yes, I tried to speak in front of them, but it is a foolish. I invited my vegetarian friends to dinner in the Holborn restaurant referred to in these chapters. Okay, at the time of departure time for my home, I invited all of my friends. I decided to give them a little party in Holborn restaurant. A vegetarian dinner could be had, I said to myself, in vegetarian restaurants? As a matter of course, but why should it not be possible in a non-vegetarian restaurant too? And I arranged with the manager of the Holborn restaurant to provide a strictly vegetarian meal. Actually, I ordered the manager of that hotel of Holborn. Here we prefer only vegetarian meal. The vegetarians hailed the new experiment with delight. All dinners are meant for enjoyment, but the West has developed the thing into an art. Okay, here vegetarianism, that is natural for us, but in that country, even when we go any restaurant, just if we prefer only vegetarian, it may be different for them. That's why all dinners are meant for enjoyment, but the West has developed the thing into an art. They are celebrated with great eclat. The great eclat, it means great style. Great eclat means great style, music and speeches. And the little dinner party that I gave was also not unaccompanied by some such display. Okay, my friends and all, they enjoyed my party in that restaurant. They felt very happy. At the time, the speeches, therefore, there had to be. Speeches, therefore, there had to be. When my turn for speaking came, I stood up to make a speech. Okay, actually, I arranged the party. I gave them party. All my friends, they spoke. They have given some speeches. When my turn for speaking came, I stood up to make a speech. I had, with great care, thought out one which would consist of a very few sentences, but I could not proceed beyond the first sentence. I had read of Edison that he began his maiden speech in the House of Commons repeating, "I conceive," 3 times. And when he could proceed no further, Wag stood up and said, "Okay, what shall I do?" Just once I remembered and Thomas Alva Edison, when he gave the first speech, maiden speech in front of others, how I spoke. Me, all the same thing happened to me. Then I said, repeating, I conceive, I conceive, I conceive, 3 times, and when he could proceed no further, Rag stood up and said, the gentleman conceived thrice, but brought forth nothing. When I spoke the word of I conceive, one of the friends said, okay, okay, 3 times he used conceive. The gentleman conceived thrice, but brought forth nothing. I had thought of making a humorous speech, taking this anecdote. Anecdote means here story. Just as a text, I think a little bit humorous, humor, a comedy arised among us. I therefore began with it and stuck there. My memory entirely failed me, and in attempting a humorous speech, I made myself ridiculous. It means foolish. I wanted to speak more and more sentences, but I used only one sentence, that is, I thank you, gentlemen, for having kindly responded to my invitation. I said abruptly and sat down. Abrupt means suddenly. I wanted to say many things, but because of fear, because of shyness, simply I said then, I thank you, gentlemen, for having kindly responded to my invitation. Then I sat down suddenly. Next, and it was only in South Africa that I got over the shyness, though I never completely overcame it. It was impossible for me to speak impromptu. What's that? Impromptu. Impromptu means without prior notice or preparation. After I got little experience and I tried to speak without having preparation, I hesitated whenever I had to face strange audiences and avoided making a speech whenever I could. Even today, I do not think I could or would even be inclined. Inclined means be wishing to keep a meeting of friends engaged in idle talk